What's going on, Lucas? How you doing, good sir?
I'm doing. We're doing today. As everyone asks, as I was tricked, bamboozled into talking about Spider-Man, everyone asks, hey, are y'all gonna get Candyman?
Are y'all gonna talk about Candyman?
Are we gonna talk about Candyman?
Well, we've seen Candyman and we're about to give you guys the goods. No pun intended. This is a non-spoiler review, so we can't go into heavy spoilers or anything to that nature. Mm-hmm. But we will talk around something that's really specific to our situation with this. I'll be very bluntly honest. I've not even seen the first one all the way through. Okay, so just make sure you know that. This man, Lucas, tell everybody how much you know of Candyman.
Now, here's the thing about Candyman for me. Okay, one, I saw Candyman for the first time when I was 11, I want to say, 11, 12. One of those two ages. And I have seen it almost every year since then. I normally watch it during the day because I refuse to watch this movie. Even as a grown man, I refuse to watch this movie at night. I will never watch this movie at night. So it's yearly during the day. I have to watch Candyman at least once a year, sometimes more than that, but at least once a year. So I've seen this movie in total over 60 times. I saw the first Candyman. Goodness. I've seen Farewell to the Flesh over 30 times, and I've seen Dawn of the Dead. I'm saying that right? Hold on. See, look, there you go. Let me help you out here. Visual presentation. I've seen Candyman more than 60 times. I've seen Farewell to the Flesh about 30 times or so.
Is that like the second or the third one?
Farewell to the Flesh is the second one of the film. It's literally the one that gives the most backstory on the character of Candyman. And then I've seen this one. Candyman Day of the Dead, Candyman 3. This movie literally came out, and this is how old I am. That movie came out on HBO, when HBO once in a while would show movies, and they would premiere movies. So that was like the first B movie, the only B movie for Candyman. And I've seen that at least 10 to 15 times, somewhere in that area. So I am big on Candyman and was super excited when this was announced. When right before we screened it, I remember asking for it about 2 months ago. It was like, no, if I don't review anything else, we got to review Candyman.
Yeah,
and here we are reviewing Candyman.
Yeah, and just to go, we can go ahead and do this the right way. So Candyman was directed by Nia DaCosta. Backstory is, based on this synopsis, a spiritual sequel to the horror film Candyman 1992 that returns a newly gentrified Chicago neighborhood where the legend began. Now, so I'm gonna tell you guys straight, I didn't have any expectations for this because I didn't know the source material. I just knew Yahya was in it, and I was interested to see what they would do with this retelling. And so for me, I think that me and Lucas are gonna have a huge difference of opinion with this movie. So I think we need to break it down a certain kind of way, Lucas, because I know what you want to do, but I know we're gonna need to do.
I'm gonna compose myself as much as humanly possible. But not only just with Candyman, I am more of a lover of horror than you are.
You really are.
Way more lover of horror than you are. So like horror is my favorite genre. This is the genre. I will watch every horror movie that comes out. Close to 60 to 70 horror movies a year I see, not like repeat viewing. I'm talking about new horror movies, and yes, it's way more than that comes out a year. So I am the guy who loves every horror movie that comes out, or loves to see, not love to see every horror movie that comes out.
Yeah, half of the movies that we watch as horror is because Lucas kind of dragged me in.
Yes, exactly.
I drag him into the superhero stuff, he dragged me into the horror stuff, and we balance each other out. But anyway, so off the gate, in terms of the opening shot of this, in terms of the soundtrack and the score, I thought that the opening shots of this and some of the specific select images of it were really well done and really well crafted. I really like the score in the beginning. It kind of transitioned around the second half to the third act, where it's kind of just like, I don't know what it was trying to do. It felt like it was trying to be something nostalgic, but I didn't know where that was being pulled from because I don't have any point of reference. But I did say that I liked a lot of the aerial shots. I liked a lot of the lighting and the close-up shots. There's this one shot, and I know Lucas knows what I'm talking about, that takes place in an apartment. And the shot kind of pulls back, and you start to see something really key. Like you have to really focus in. There was a horror movie a long time ago. It was Let the Right One In, like not the Swedish version, not the new one, but Let the Right One In.
Yeah. Uh-huh.
And there was a shot that was at a hospital, and it's like, unless you were paying attention to what was going on, you didn't know that it was literally somebody crawling up, and it felt like that. And I was kind of like, this is a really well done shot. So the cinematography and the soundtrack I thought was executed really well, and a lot of the shot placement was done pretty well. The problem is that I will say is that for horror effect, I think it loses its intensity as it progresses. A lot of the time, I knew where things were going to go. Not to say that it was necessarily telegraphed, but I was like, I feel like I've already been spoiled with the trailer. I feel like the trailer is already giving me where I know this is going. The only thing left is just to connect this one specific dot. And I know you guys don't know what I'm talking about, being very vague, but it was, unfortunately, from the marketing and then the way that they telegraphed it very early on, you really know what's already happening. But I really did appreciate the imagery and the shot calls and a lot of the score for this one. But Lucas, you can go that route or you can go to a different route. I'm cool.
First, let's say with Jordan Peele movies, please stop playing pop songs or pop R&B songs slowly in trailers to trick people. So playing Destiny's Child "Say My Name" in a very haunting way does not work. That song is not haunting at all. Was
that in the trailer?
Yes, it was. Yes. From a shot perspective, it's some beautiful shots in this movie. Absolutely stunning shots. The way it's one in an elevator in this film that they pull off. That's a really good shot. Beyond the occasionally great shots and beautiful cinematography, because this movie looks great.
It does. It really
Besides
does.
that, I'm going to disagree with Sam on one thing quickly. I did not like this score, not in the slightest, because they went from attempting to be original to attempting to bring nostalgia, and the mix was not well. Another thing I will agree with is that as the movie progresses, this movie is not scary at all. Let's just start there. It's not scary at all. This is not a horror movie in any way, shape, form, or fashion. It is not shot like a horror movie. It is not played out like a horror movie. This is set up like a satire drama.
A supernatural thriller drama.
Yeah, I wouldn't even say supernatural thriller, because in all honesty, some of the shots and that's another flaw. Some of the shots they thought would be great involving Candyman or the spirit of Candyman looks cartoonish. And that's something that you got to be really careful of with Candyman, because he is technically a spirit, but you don't want it to come across and look too silly.
Right.
There's one particular scene, they showed it in a trailer countless times, where he drags a guy by his foot. In the film, it looks very much like Paranormal Activity. I thought it literally was like the same shot to me.
So yeah, that I will comment on that. There is a scene, it takes place in an art gallery.
Yeah.
And this is gonna talk about one of the flaws that I had as far as the dialogue. The dialogue was, I don't know if it was poorly acted, it just didn't fit. I would have preferred that the actors in that scene didn't say nothing. And they just stood there and looked at a cue card and said, this, and then all of a sudden it started happening. Much like, again, I don't want to prepare anything.
No, you can, because I
can't, because I don't have a point of reference, so I can't necessarily say that. But I would say that from the dialogue standpoint with that specific scene, it would have worked so much better. Whereas like even like this sequence right here, that I was kind of like, I felt like this should have been beyond creepy. I feel like this should have set the tone for the whole entire film. And the weird thing is, this is rated R. Like there's some gruesome stuff that's done, but it isn't. What's the word? It's not. It's not potently rated R. It's not something that's going to terrify you.
There you go. That's the best way to put it.
Because there's some surprising things. There's some gruesome things. There's some messed up things that are happening. And some stuff that's really kind of like psychological that I'm like, what the heck is going on? Because there's a shot in a laundromat Okay, and one of the main actresses in there, she kind of goes through this door, and all of a sudden, like something switches really quick, like it's really noticeable. And I was like, that felt creepy because I was like, I had to pull the double take. I was like, oh, cool, but that those moments are kind of fleeting. They're there, then they're not. And I felt like this movie could have really went for it. And I don't know if they were pulling punches because they were trying to honor the source material, or if they were trying to be so much like the source material that they didn't make this their own. Because it did feel like a little bit like, what they remade for Halloween, where it's like, okay, we're gonna remake it in this way, but then it's technically not a remake because it's technically a sequel. So you have to honor a certain source material, but then you can't play the same exact tropes like it was then. But you can be authentically just in there. And I felt like there were moments of dialogue and things that were happening progression with the main character specifically. Because I was like, y'all can act, bro. Like he
in this movie he couldn't. And that is very weird. It just one, they put him in the typical black hotep outfit, which I'm never going to be happy with. Converse, ankle jeans, tight t-shirt, and a red beanie. Come on, man. Like you couldn't be more spot on for a hotep than that outfit. And it just doesn't, his whole character actually doesn't work in this movie. And his character is a callback. Unfortunately, one of the biggest reveals in the third act of this film, they literally reveal in press material and everything from when the movie was being made. They told you exactly who his character was. That should have been saved and set up a lot better during the movie. They give you one of the biggest spoilers they give away immediately to you before you've ever seen this film. And because you know who he is, and I'm not going to say just in case there's people out there who have not seen anything of it, and I strongly doubt you have it, but it's a chance you have it. Right. That spoiled the whole movie for me because I was just waiting for that reveal to happen. I'm like, okay, I know who he is. So just reveal who he is. But then everything that goes along the way with that, I can tell you this much, Sam, it didn't lean on nostalgia. It didn't lean on source material because they changed up the myth of Candyman completely in this movie. Okay. Like, again, without going into great detail, because we cannot go into detail because this is spoiler free. But they introduce a character as Candyman at the beginning of this film. Yeah. Then they rotate and give you a universe of Candyman. And then they transition to the Candyman that we know from the original movies. But that whole transition is so sloppily done and non-explained properly. But they explain it with the plight of Black trauma. So now this is where, again, hey, that's why I didn't say much of nothing. That's no, it's good. But one thing I'm gonna say is that because I don't know the source material, I assumed that was just how it was. I assumed like, okay, Candyman is not just a entity in and of itself, is deep-seated and connected to trauma or connected to something else. And so through the progression of this film, I was like, okay, this is a progressional thing that is just concurrently happening. I don't want to compare it to a Netflix show, but they kind of pull that route. And I was kind of like, oh, okay, this is interesting. Because now I'm like, okay, there's things that I don't know. There's a backstory that I don't know with other people that are associated to Candyman. And it's all connected to, a group of people, a race of people that from an injustice standpoint is like being affected by this. So for me, I didn't have really much of a problem because I was like, okay, cool. This is where we're at. And I was like, all right, I'll come to grips with where they're going with this, even though the execution I feel like could have been so much better. But for me, I was really intrigued because I was like, oh, okay, where are they going with this? What does this mean? Because there's a character that from the original 1992 version that shows up in this. And I was like, what does this mean? And then, when they start to kind of talk around the connection and what this meant, I was like, oh, okay, I'm engaged. Because honestly, now for the first time, I want to go back and look at the original. Like, don't. Because the moment you look at it, that's my issue. The moment you look at it, all that myth that they attempted to set up here makes absolutely no sense. I just showed you 3 Candyman movies. None of that myth is shown in any of these movies. None of it. And that's a huge issue for me, because that means you went back and said, we need to change the source material to fit into more Black trauma into it while preaching to you. Because this Candyman, amazingly, majority of the time only kills white people.
Yeah, there was. So, okay, I'm going to say it. I'm going to be very real about this. I just assumed that was the case. I'm not going to lie to you. Even when I look at like the cover art of Candyman, I don't see any Caucasian people. I don't see anybody but this man. And so I've always just assumed that this was something where it's like, this is deep rooted from a tragedy that happened to a man, much like Freddy Krueger, but it was an injustice side of it, as opposed to somebody actually doing something. And so I just assumed that was a part of the mythology. I really did. I'm not going to lie to you. So one of
the most brutal killings that happens in the very first Candyman movie is him killing a Black woman.
So I'm gonna say this. There is a moment in the movie
where it kind of goes against myth. Makes no sense, right? We know the scene.
So it does go against what
everything they've set up. That's all I'm saying. Everything they set up, they do one scene that's so out of place with everything they've set up. You're now stuck in like, wait a minute. Well, I thought he only did this. Because it went a long way to tell you, like, Candyman is a hero of Black people in a way.
Yeah, it really is. It's like he was kind of like the hero of the story, even though there is a scene with the character. And I was like, wait, hold up. That is not a Caucasian person. Like, they're just getting slaughtered right now. So I don't know what's really happening. And again, that part of that made me more intrigued and made me feel like anything could happen. But the fault for me with the movie, honestly, comes into the third act. The third act becomes very convoluted in the sense that, all right, you got me to this point. And there's a scene that Yahya does a really good job in, and I can't really bring it up. But from that point, his character just disappears. Literally. Like, when I mean he disappears, he's just gone. And even though he is there, he's just gone. And I was kind of like, where are we going with the mythology side of this? Mm-hmm. Because in the sense of what you set up and building around this character and making him larger than what you even assumed, you're not really telling me that much. You're leaving it up for my interpretation, which is an intriguing thing, which for me, I'm going to say this. I'm going to go ahead and say this up front. I don't think this is a bad movie. I don't think this is a very bad movie. I think this is actually a decent movie that made me more intrigued to want to see the originals, even though it may end up pissing me off later. The movie did its job for me in the sense that I was like, okay, I really want to see more of this. I really want to now kind of get over my fear of what it was and see what is this what they're trying to say. And is it a better story out there outlining where the progression of these characters gone? Because there are other actors in there. We haven't even brought up any of the other actors. Technically, really, the acting isn't good. Nobody jumps out at all. And it's not a matter of like, oh, okay, this one person had this amazing thing. Like, no, even the horror moments aren't even that memorable. And there's a scene that I felt like, I was like, oh, Jordan's about to kill this, from a written standpoint. And I don't know if it might have been on the directing side or if it was on the written side, but there's a scene that happens in a bathroom. And I was like, okay, you're setting this up, even though it's telegraphed like crazy.
Sure is.
I was like, this should be the moment that you see the fear. I should feel terrified. Or you should at least, in this way, this is how I would have taken it. There's a person that's installed. And I think that if they would have focused it from her perspective, from the moment she went in to the moment she went out, and just she's listening to what they're doing, as opposed to showing, like that setup could have been so dope. Because by the time you get out of the bathroom, from first person standpoint, you look to the right, you look to the left, and like, oh my gosh, what the flip is happening? Because one thing that I'll say, they set up so much about the mythology of Candyman in this movie, but the Black people in this movie, the only thing that they don't do is repeat Candyman in a mirror, but they don't really talk about the reality of what's happening. It's almost like this ain't really a thing. And I'm like, because there's 3 characters specifically that are Black. And I was like, oh man, y'all should be talking right now. Like this should be something that's like, yo, that person died. Like we need to have a real conversation right now. Or wait, what have you found out? Like what's going on?
Well, it's one Black character in this film, that the brother who's completely wasted. Completely wasted.
He's actually a really good actor too.
Yes. And he's completely wasted in this movie. He does nothing.
Yeah.
And then even when the actors do say the name, and you notice I say the name because I'm not sure how many times I said the name and I'm looking at the screen, so mind messing with me. But I don't know how often, how many times it's a Black character that says the name, and then everything that happens after they say the name is to all other people but them. That unto itself is against the myth of Candyman. Completely against the myth of him.
So I'm gonna say this because I did look at the first 30 minutes of the original one. Ted Raimi, I think Sam Raimi's brother, right? Mm-hmm. Him and the girlfriend or whatever. They were because the girlfriend said no. I can't remember. One of them said it 4 times.
And
then she said
the 5th
once, and then she got killed. So I was kind of like, okay, cool. I can forgive that. But then there's like Lucas said, there's a situation that I was like, what's going on right now? So again, a part of that also plays into what they're trying to do with Yahya's character. And I need to look at the original one because I don't understand. I still really don't understand. And I don't think I'm actually going to get that explainer either.
And the original is not going to explain any parts of this movie. And that's the problem. So you did a sequel, and to really, especially for horror movie fans, to drive this home, what I really thought about this movie, because this is not a good movie. This is not a good horror movie at all. That's straightforward. This is not a good movie. It's not a good Candyman movie. And it's not a good horror movie. It would remind you, even the transformations that happened in this film reminded me of Nightmare on Elm Street 2. A lot of it felt ripped from Nightmare on Elm Street 2, where you get someone who transforming into a different character. And again, just like that movie, it had so much setup with no real payoff or execution. So it took away the horror element from it. The difference here is that it interjected Jordan Peele's unnecessary need to add satire to these movies. At one point, we got to understand and say, yes, Get Out was great. We can now admit, maybe that was the only one. Because every movie since then plays the same tropes that are in Get Out. Us did the same thing. Candyman did the same thing. Lovecraft Country did the same thing. Even the show Hunters on Amazon did the same thing. All of it has the same setup. At what point do we got to admit, like, dude, you pulled it off once, but unless you come with an original way to do this stuff, and what's worse yet, you took a beloved character. Candyman is part of the modern day renaissance of the horror films in the early 90s. A lot of these movies came out then, and it brought a different spin on the slasher genre, a more thought-provoking spin on the slasher genre, where you didn't have to kill as many people. You just had to make the killings memorable and impactful. Here, as Sam said, none of this stuff is memorable or impactful. Not a single bit of it. And that's a huge problem for a horror movie when I can say, and Sam can say, it's not really scary. Matter of fact, it's not scary at all. Like, how do you do a horror movie that's not scary? Based off of a horror movie that most people still feel is one of the scariest horror movies they've ever seen. That's a problem.
Yeah, again, so it's not scary, you guys. It's really not. The opening of it kind of had me kind of like, oh snap, what about it? I literally, the anticipation, I was kind of like, okay, all right, let me calm myself down. I was looking at it at nighttime and everything. I was like, about to get some popcorn ready. And, that's not what I really got out of this film. I got a lot of, layering in terms of the mythology that they're trying to build within this film. but unfortunately, I didn't get any good, impactful performances. I didn't get any kind of really good, like, honestly, shock moments that would really keep something like this in my mind.
Real quick. This is a horror movie without a single jump scare in it.
There's one.
It's not. Think about what a jump scare is. There's not a single jump scare in this movie.
It's
not a single jump scare in this movie.
There is creepy moments that if you notice them there, to his point, technically that's true. Because everyone that I'm thinking about comes off as a creepy moment. And the ones that I guess try to be jump scares don't feel like it. Because
at times it just felt like an action movie. Even at the times, especially at the end of the third act, that whole setup felt like an action movie. I forgot I was watching something supposed to be a horror movie.
So Coleman the character Coleman Domingo's character William, I felt like, I ain't gonna say it. I felt like he could have easily been the main character, and Yahya's character didn't even have to exist. And I don't want you guys to take that the wrong way, but there's more substance around his character that makes sense and relevance to this. But even with Parris's character, I understand her connection to this. Like I get it. Like, matter of fact, her character made the most sense, where it's like, okay, she's not directly connected to this, but it's rooted in something that I'm like, okay, I get it. Like, this could work. But with Yahya, they just kind of put him into it as opposed to maybe it's the execution of how they did it.
And let me say this, because what you just touched on is something that a lot of people should understand. If you understood the synopsis and everything that was thrown out from this movie from the beginning, you just literally told them the most important character, who's supposed to be a carryover from the original movie, you can literally go without him being in the movie because they set up another character better. Okay, I'm trying my best to not say who Yahya's character is, even though if you looked it up right now, they're going to literally tell you exactly who his character is. And he's supposed to be the most important character in this film, and he is not set up remotely close as well as the other character. That's a problem. That's a serious problem. Matter of fact, everybody know who Yahya's character is because there's a scene in one of the first trailers where they show him with who his mama is, and everyone know who his mama is.
Wait, don't say it. Don't say it.
No, I gotta say it. That's why I say it's in the trailer. All you gotta do is see the trailer. Matter of fact, that moment is one of the key moments of the trailer that got people intrigued into this movie.
Yeah.
So then you know who that is. So then you understand the connection Yahya character is supposed to have. And we can both say another character makes way more sense than his do. That's nuts. That's absolutely crazy.
Yeah, and just to say one other thing that I did like, I like the background characters that are connected to Candyman, because I don't have any connection to Candyman. I actually dug all the different people that were connected to this, and how it's kind of like a generational thing. Now, the way that they kind of are platforming it and what they're trying to say, I don't really know what the director / the writer are trying to say, but I was kind of like intrigued by it. Matter of fact, after the movie is done, there's a credit scene that's kind of like cardboard cutouts that tell you a lot more of the story, that if you watch it all the way from the beginning of the end credit all the way to the end, you'll get the gist of the situation. And I liked all that. I liked the dark backstory of it. I felt like now I'm like, I need to know who Candyman is, because I don't really know.
So then now, if you watch the original, because this is the key part, is you're gonna have to watch the original, and you're gonna have to watch the original and then question everything you just saw in this movie and be like, wait a minute, but then why did you add these characters? Why was this myth added to him? Besides, again, the point to highlight that Black trauma creates an evil spirit that must be fed, because that's what it comes across as. Like, you need someone to also suffer Black trauma to pass down things. Like, that's not at all the myth of Candyman, though. So it goes far enough to attempt to explain things to you. Again, I compared it to Nightmare on Elm Street 2. As we get to comparing things, it reminded me of Rob Zombie's Halloween movies. Like, as they always say, Michael Myers stopped being scary when you explain to me everything about Michael Myers. It's the number one rule in horror movies. If I explain to you the villain, how are you scared of this person anymore? Yeah. They went out their way to explain to you Candyman. When you do that, how can he be the villain? Yeah. He can't. He can no longer be the villain. It's the biggest flaw you can always do in horror movies that everyone avoids. The faceless killer works better. Little to no backstory works better. But when I give you nothing but backstory and setup, by the end of this movie, you end up cheering for Candyman. I want that to sink into people who remember the first Candyman. By the end of this movie, you cheer for him. That's crazy.
Yeah, and so for me, again, I'm going to probably revisit talking about this. I don't know if we should do a spoiler review, or maybe we should do a review on the original.
Sir?
Because I've never seen it.
I've had my one time a year to watch it, so I'm just never going to watch it.
No, you don't got to watch it. I'm saying I'll watch it and then we review it.
We got to review it during the day, though.
I don't care. I'm just saying that
I don't mess around with that movie.
Because the reason why I say that is the legend of Candyman is talked around in this film, but I don't really truly know who Candyman is based on.
We would have to watch the first two movies because that's when you get the full legend of Candyman. And again, without me, we can't talk fully what happens in the movie because they touch on it some, but it's because they add other layers to it that were never there in the first place. It just throws it off.
Yeah, everything about Candyman, the actual Candyman, is through exposition. So I don't have any point of reference. And now I'm thirsty for it now.
Put it like this. If you watch the first Candyman, when he first shows up in a parking garage for Helen, and he creepily like, Helen. When he's saying her name, that scene is more scary than anything in this movie. Anyway. And that's the first time you see him in the first movie, which normally happens in the first 30 minutes or so, that he shows up in that garage and he does that to her. That's more scary than any scene in this movie.
Yeah. And I know we've been talking all around the place, but what I tried to do is give you guys our concise thoughts on this individually, because again, we're in a different situation with this one. But yeah, so let's go ahead and give it numbers. Lucas, closing thoughts, and what do you rate this from 1 to 10?
I hate this movie. I will never watch it again. I am mad that it was made. Jordan Peele, stay away from any other Black supposed classic horror. Guess what? I don't think there are anymore. It's normally literally Candyman, and then the only other one people accept Black people is People Under the Stairs, and that is not a Black horror movie. This one was a Black horror movie, and you ruined it by interjecting your unnecessary brand of social commentary that I did not need in a Candyman movie. So my score for this movie would be a 2 out of 10. And you know why I'm giving it 2? Because it looks good at times. At times it looks good, but you literally made a horror movie with no horror from one of the classic horror movie characters of all time. He's literally top 10 of horror movie characters of all time, if not closer to top 5. He's definitely top 10 of horror movie characters ever made. And you ruined a movie with him in it. No. I want to say more. Not about the movie. I want to rant more, but I'm not going to. I'm just going to say this is not a good horror movie. I cannot believe they allowed any of you people around this property to make this movie. It makes no sense at all. This is a betrayal to every horror movie fan. This is a complete betrayal because you did something you had no business doing. This is Fantastic Four level of betrayal. So if you're a superhero movie fan, the way you felt about Fantastic Four is the way horror movie fans are going to feel about this movie. the same thing. You took a character, or in that case, characters that people loved, and you just completely changed everything about that just to match a narrative that you wanted to push. Guess what? We had a great narrative of Candyman, and it could have went there, and it could have stayed there. Instead, you turn it into this piece of garbage where you take away everything.
My turn. I was like, closing thoughts, Lucas. No. Yo, shout out to Kenya King. I actually thought you were gonna say Tales from the Hood, but
Tales from the Hood is not a classic. It is funny. It is definitely funny. It's a hood movie classic, but it's not a classic horror movie.
Everybody talks about Tales from the Hood. Anyway, man, we done lost like 10, 15 people. Okay, all right. So my closing thoughts are this. I really did appreciate the cinematography. I think that the score, again, I haven't seen the original, so I don't know what they were trying to do, but I felt like it started to become kind of convoluted midway through the movie into the back half. I was like, I don't know what the heck this actually is. I felt like, unfortunately, Yahya's character was not utilized well, if not, shouldn't even have been in the movie at all. Or if they were going to put him in the movie, they should have made him a finite this, and I can't really say. I think that I really was engaged with what they were trying to do with the actual background of Candyman and what it could be. But instead, it was diluted with a lot of bad dialogue, poorly acted scenes. And as far as the satire in this, I've seen worse, personally. We've talked about some things in some other shows that have taken it to worse lengths. I do question certain things, but again, I'm only going off what Lucas is telling me. From what I knew, I was like, I thought Candyman just killed him. So I just, from my assumption, from what I got from this, I do say, and I can't acknowledge this as a horror film, this is not your typical horror film, nor does it have any scary moments or terrifying moments that make you feel this chill. There's not even any real moments that you're ever going to really remember. But I think that from what they're trying to do with it, as far as like a thriller-esque, and even engaging in getting people to be noticed who Candyman is, because what this did for me more than anything is now I really want to see the originals. Now I really want to know what is, and maybe you guys are kind of like, man, this dude don't want to see this. This is the scariest thing in my childhood. But for me, now I'm like, I'm engaged. This movie did its part for me. I want to see it. And so for me, I already said like a 6 out of 10. I was going to say a 5.5, but I was like, at this point, I might as well just give it a 6 out of 10. I would watch this again, but not necessarily with the dialogue going on. More so like background noise to see some of the moments I thought were really cool. I thought they had some really good, I was gonna say action moments, but that's terrible to say. It's not action. It's not action moments, but what can you do? So yeah, I rested at a 6 out of 10. I did enjoy moments of this. Is it perfect? No. And if you're looking for something that, from based on what Lucas is saying, from what you knew from the Candyman lore in the past, this might not be for you. But if you've never heard of Candyman like me and you've never seen it, or you're, younger and it's like, okay, you want to get,
you are an alien exposed. That you have never heard of Candyman. Let's just put it like that. You're an alien that you've never heard of Candyman. Well, you could be. I know people in their 20s, in their teenage years, that know Candyman. It's literally one of the biggest lores we have in horror movies.
Well, I am an alien, so somebody out there may have never seen it, know who the character is, know how amazing it was to the horror genre, as Lucas is expressing. From that standpoint, I can understand and acknowledge where he kind of comes from with this. Again, Lucas is the horror person. I am not. So for me now, I'm going to go down this deep dive where hopefully okay, I'm going to ask you this, Lucas. Should I watch the original one at nighttime?
You just literally heard me say I've seen it 60 times, and I have not watched it at night since the very first time I watched the movie. Because Candyman was in the ghetto killing people, and his swing set in that movie looked like the swing set that was outside the apartment in the ghetto that I grew up in. Ain't no way in hell I'm watching this movie at night. So for me, no. For other people, they thrive on watching it at night. They love it.
I don't know what he's talking about, but now I guess I'm going to look at it.
Yes. I know exactly what scene he's talking about.
I don't know.
1,000% so. Again, it's a classic horror movie. So check it out. And then possibly go check this out because it's in theaters this Friday and in theaters only.
Yep.
So this is not a streaming option. You got to go to see theaters to go see this film. I'm a supporter of horror movies. So as bad as I told you it is, I would still say go see it because it could be a more enjoyable experience for some of you out there than it was for me. Just know if you're a lover of horror movie, it's most likely going to disappoint you.
Yeah, we want you guys to let us know what you think about it. Please make sure you come back to this, leave a comment if you liked it, if you didn't like it. If you guys want us to come back and talk a spoiler review with it, maybe we'll do that post, going through the first two.
Or have Sam on Twitch watch the first Candyman.
Why would you do that? Why would no? If I'm doing that, you're doing it with me.
Oh, as long as it's during the day, we're fine.
You're never available during the day.
Then that's the only time we're gonna do it. It's gonna be on the weekend during the day because I'm not watching it at night under any circumstance.
But that would be so much more entertaining. Imagine if we watched it at nighttime. And I'll be up there with you.
No, but you're all the way away. I need nope. I plan on trying to sleep. So yeah, I won't sleep if I watched it. So no, not during the night.
Kenya, thank you, bro. I appreciate you, and thank all you guys that watch this live. If you guys enjoy our live movie reviews, please let us know. We actually enjoy doing it this way. Sometimes it kind of comes off as a rant and muffled, but we try to tackle all the key points of the movie, and hopefully we did enough with that. We apologize we didn't go through all the different actors, but again, nothing was very memorable in terms of the acting prowess nor the dialogue for any of the actors that were a part of it. And let us know what you think about Candyman 2021. We will talk to you guys much later, and peace, people. Right? Is that right? That's what you say.